What if I told you there were things that you could buy that would make you a faster runner, some immediately, with zero run training needed? Would you believe me? Because it's true, and we've created our top 10 purchases to make you a faster runner, but it's not just based on how much faster, or even how quickly it happens. I balanced it out on cost too. So number 1 on the list will be what we think is the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to your running. And as always, the deal is if you learn something new, consider subscribing for more juicy learning. Let's start with number 10. Now before I go on this top 10 odyssey, it's worth saying right here, right now, that absolutely nothing will defeat consistent and smart training. That's how it is. What this top 10 is the icing on the cake and then the cherry on top of that. So if you train consistently and you train smart, it doesn't hurt to start looking into purchases that can give you that extra little boost. That's how I'm looking at it. And we start at number 10 with these. And these. Now the reason this is on the list at all is twofold actually, because there's not that much evidence that says shaving your legs is going to make you a faster runner when you look at wind resistance, but it's not all about wind resistance. Thing is, if it didn't make any difference, then none of the pros would shave their legs, and yet they all do, so there has to be something there. But it just might be psychological, which is still okay. So if we accept that this is very much about marginal physical gains, minimal, but could be quite huge psychological gains, if you feel faster, are you going to be faster? So maybe this one is much more about building an identity as a runner and then taking the small wins, but where there can be absolutely no doubt that this is hugely beneficial is when you dip your toes into the murky waters of triathlon and you add swim and bike to the mix, because that is when it has been proven beyond doubt it is beneficial and will make you a faster athlete. And I'm going to do a few triathlons this year, so that's why I'm doing this. And at number 9, I'll put an app, which is one that costs about $10, 10 quid. And the one I use is called HRV for training. So it's just this one in the middle of the screen there. It basically tracks your heart rate variability, and without getting into too much detail, the way I use it is that I get up in the morning and the first thing I do every morning is check my heart rate variability. And based on that heart rate variability that I get each morning, the app gives me a kind of training readiness score. If it's blue, it means I'm good to go for the day. But if my heart rate variability is off for whatever reason, it's usually an indicator of stress and it tells me to dial my training back. And the reason that that's good is because if you listen to it, the evidence points to the fact that you will be a faster, better runner, stay in the game more if you actually dial the training back than if you continue down the path of feeling stressed and trying to train through it, which can only lead to detraining, injury, plateauing. And there are many other ways to track your heart rate variability, like Oura rings, or if you even keep your watch on overnight, which I don't. So there's more than just one way, but this is the way that I use it, and I would credit it for keeping me training consistently, which of course makes you a faster runner. So it does add speed just by buying it. Just as a little bit more long term. And in at number 8 is something that can be free if you watch channels like this and apply it, and it can also cost money if you hire a coach or buy a training plan. But that is structure. Structuring your weeks but also your sessions can make an enormous difference to your speed by factoring in recovery days and recovery weeks, fitting important sessions at the right times of the week, and even making sure each session trains the right things at the right time. And the reason that this isn't higher on the list is that although structure can make you a much better and faster runner, it's by no means a quick fix. You measure your progress in multiple months and years rather than immediate or even days. So you do need to add structure to your routine, and you can do it for free. But you can't expect to get faster anytime soon because of it. It's a long-term project. At number 7 is something that can simultaneously make you a better and faster runner, as well as less likely to get injured, and that's a proper running analysis. The ability to have someone who knows what they're doing and is trained look at the way you run, maybe do a few tests and see where any issues might be, correct technique issues that keep leading you down the path of injury. Now that has to be worth its weight in gold. I think the main snag for people is that
that it can be quite pricey, but as we keep saying, these are investments in ourselves. There is probably no better investment on this planet than the ones that we know directly benefit our health and well-being. I've had 3 major run analysis done over my time as a runner, and I credit each one with getting me over a rut or an injury and helping me move to the next level. And the reason it's not higher on the list is simple. It's really just the cost and how immediate the speed is. It needs a little time and it needs a decent chunk of cash. It is worth it, but there are easier speed wins if you want them.
Now this one may surprise you that it's not higher, but in at number 6 is weight training. Anything you can do to strengthen yourself. So it might be kettlebells like I've got here, but it could quite easily be dumbbells, could even be body weight. Because if you're going for pure effect on your speed and on your running, then this has to be right up there, if not number 1. But pure effect is not what this video is about. This video is about when you balance cost, effect, and how immediate the effect is, and balance that all out. So whilst it could be argued that weight training in general is probably about the best thing that you can do for your body, it's not something that you can just put on or wear or even eat or drink that's going to make you faster immediately. But the point to strength and conditioning is that it isn't a quick fix. It's something that you need to engage in for life for it to work. And that's why it's not higher up on the list. Oh, and also because the video said that it's not training and getting faster. And technically it's not run training, but I guess, you know, strength and conditioning is kind of training. So that's number 6, could be higher, but in this video, it's not.
At number 5 is something relatively cheap and relatively effective, and it's an energy gel. You see, energy gels replace the carbohydrates lost in exercise, and many a runner's training or even race has been blown up by a lack of energy. In a marathon, I take around 7 gels, and in a half marathon 2, and although they don't really add speed, the reason they're on this list is because they help me maintain my speed for longer and be faster over the course of my race than if I hadn't have taken them. So they do definitely make me a faster overall runner. I would just say experiment with different gels and flavors and find out what you respond to the best. Your gut's very trainable, but you don't want to leave it to race day. And the reason gels aren't higher on the list is because they really only come into play at half marathons or over. But for around £1 a pop, it's well worth giving them a go.
And coming in at number 4, and it's something I'm absolutely certain that I'm a faster runner because of, and I definitely couldn't live without, is my watch. See, here's the thing, I'm a big fan of knowing how my body feels when I'm putting in a particular effort, but what a watch allows me to do is marry up the data with that other information so that on a race or even in training, I'm gonna get the best out of myself and the fastest if I need to, particularly in races. It tells me how far I've gone in the race, it tells me what pace I'm running at so that I can make judgments on whether I can push a little bit harder or whether I need to dial it back. It tells me when I'm 1 or 2 or 3 kilometers from the end of, say, a marathon or a half marathon, and I know that I've got enough left in the tank to push on and go harder. There's tons of different brands, but it's the information that they give you that allows you to be a faster runner. And I am 100% certain that I would be a slower overall runner times-wise if I didn't have my watch with me in races. They can just be quite expensive. That's the problem with these watches. You can pick up for reasonably cheap, but you can go to the nth degree and go very expensive, and that's up to you. And it's why they're at number 4.
So I'm going to do number 3 while I'm doing the rest period in my hard interval session, because I can't talk when I'm running, but I'm going to give you a clue. In at number 3 are those bad boys. And you may have guessed, number 3 is carbon plated shoes. I'm in the Vaporflies right now, but I've got a number of pairs, Alpha Flies, Hoka Carbon X. I've got a few. And the reason that they're a number 3, actually, if you're talking about money was no object, what would make you the fastest runner by putting something on or taking something? Carbon plated shoes, number 1, 5 minutes quicker over the marathon, hands down. But remember, this top 10, it's not about just what's going to make you faster, it's about balancing out the cost as well. And these can come in at pretty pricey numbers, about 260 quid for a pair of Vaporflies, which is pretty punchy. So in essence, I'm totally sold on these, but you have to be willing to spend the money, and there may be some other better uses of your money, which might be at number 2 and number 1.
And in at number 2, due to the sheer impact that this purchase can have over all distances from sprint to ultramarathon and also strength training, there are so many studies out there proving how effective this is. Good old caffeine. The thing is, caffeine's a performance enhancer in so many different ways, but the ones that stand out for me are that it improves your focus. It's a stimulant, so it makes you feel like you have mental clarity, but also it masks pain and tiredness. So when you're suffering in a race, to a certain degree, caffeine can help. The only caveat I have to all of this when it comes to caffeine is that there are side effects, especially if you take it in large doses. So rather than that, what Mary and I have trained ourselves to do is be sensitive to caffeine, so we only have 1 caffeinated drink a day, and that tends to then, when we want to exercise, if we take caffeine before, works a treat, absolutely buzzing from it. So because of the sheer impact over every single distance that you can think of, and even weight training, and how immediate it is, caffeine is going in at my number 2. And all for the price of a coffee. I've just realised how ironic it's number 2.
And we think number 1, when you balance cost and effect on your speed, is a heart rate monitor. And I'm not going to show you mine, Ben can show you his. Let's take, for example, the session I've just done, which is a kilometre repeat session on the track. Wearing heart rate strap has enabled me to get the absolute most out of that session, because for each kilometre I knew exactly where my heart rate needed to be to make sure I'm working hard enough but also not too hard, so I can work on my speed and efficiency and get the absolute most out of the session just by checking where my heart rate's at.
Oh, that was a good bit.
And another huge benefit is in races, because you can monitor your heart rate and make sure you're going fast enough and pushing yourself, but so that you're not going to blow up horrendously and totally destroy your race and your time in the race. So take, for example, marathon or half marathon. I know where my heart rate needs to be at each stage in the race, and I can monitor that and make sure I stick to it so I can hit my time.
And that is why heart rate monitor is number 1 in our books, bang for your buck plus speed.
And if the video brought you value in any way, then consider subscribing to the channel, but as always, no hard sell. But you are definitely going to like this video. If you like the purchases, then this is the hard work and the smart work underneath. It's the 9 best running workouts I've ever done that took me to the next level in my running and got me where I am. I hope this helped. I'll see you next Sunday.